All right, let's talk about the German past tense. For a lot of learners, it can feel, well, totally random. But what if I told you there's a secret logic hiding in plain sight? Believe it or not, we're going to crack the code, and it all kicks off with a love song that's about 100 years old. Let's get into it. This line comes from a classic German tune from back in 1925. It's all about a university student who, on one perfect summer night, just completely falls in love in the gorgeous city of Heidelberg. It's the stuff of romance novels. And that's a fair question, right? Grammar and love songs don't usually mix. Well, believe it or not, this little story holds the key to understanding why German verbs can act so, well, so weird sometimes. To really get this, we're going to follow a made-up couple, Helmut and Gisela, whose story happens way back in 1910. And here's the important part. We're going to hear their entire story told in the past tense. So, first up, let's meet Helmut. He's a student in Heidelberg, and his dream is to become a school teacher. He tells us, "My parents didn't want that, but I made the decision." You can tell right away, this is a guy who carves his own path. Okay, so you really want to zoom in on that verb he used, gewollt. It means wanted. See that T at the end? Tuck that away. That's clue number 1 in our little grammatical mystery. And here's Gisela. Now, her dad just so happens to be the principal of the school where Helmut is about to start working. She's remembering a party her father threw for the new teachers, and she says, "There I saw Helmut." Now, check out Gisela's verb, gesehen, which means seen. Look at that ending, en. So wait a minute. Helmut's verb ended in t, but hers ends in en. What is going on here? Why are they different? This difference, this little contrast between a t ending and an n ending, well, it's not so little. In fact, it's everything. It's the key that unlocks the entire German past tense system. So here's the deal. German verbs are basically split into two big teams. On one side, you have what we call weak verbs. These are the rule followers. They're predictable, they're reliable, and their past forms end in that T, just like Helmut's gewollt. But on the other side, you've got the strong verbs. These are the rule breakers, the rebels, and their past forms end in N, just like Gisela's gesehen. Okay, so weak, strong. Where did these kind of weird terms even come from? Well, the answer comes from a name that I guarantee you know, but probably not because of his work in linguistics. But first, you might be thinking, oh great, how many of these strong verbs are there? The good news is there are only about 200 of them. The catch is, they happen to be some of the most common, everyday verbs in the entire language. So yeah, you kind of have to know them. That's right, Jakob Grimm, one half of the famous Brothers Grimm. Before the fairy tales, he was a massive figure in linguistics, and his idea was almost, well, poetic. He said weak verbs are too weak to form the past tense by themselves, so they have to borrow, help, that t ending. But strong verbs, they're powerful enough to change themselves from the inside out, so they get to keep their original n. So how exactly does a verb change from within? It does it by swapping out its main vowel. Grimm gave this process a really fancy-sounding name, ablaut, but the concept is actually pretty straightforward. Let's just break it down. Take the verb sprechen, which means to speak. To put it in the past, that core E vowel actually morphs into an O, and boom, sprechen becomes gesprochen. It's a total internal transformation. Pretty cool, right? And here's the best part. It's not just random chaos. There are very clear patterns to these changes. The vowel I often flips to an E. The vowel E often becomes U, which, by the way, is just like in English. Drink becomes drink. And often turns into O. So the big takeaway here is you don't need to memorize 200 separate verbs. You just need to learn how to spot the patterns. All right, so now that we're armed with this secret linguistic knowledge, let's get back to our story. Helmut and Gisela are at that party, they're about to meet, and we get to see these rules play out in their own words. So Helmut spots Gisela across the room, and he's thinking, she wore a beautiful summer dress, and I found her captivating. I thought, who is this woman? Now look at his verbs, getragen, from tragen, to wear, and gefunden, from finden, to find. See? 2 more strong verbs right there in the wild. And Gisela remembers what happened next. I went to him and asked, would you like a drink? And so it all began. It was love at first sight. She uses gegangen from gehen, to go, and begonnen from beginnen, to begin. The pattern is everywhere once you know what you're looking for. But hang on. Let's rewind to one of Helmut's verbs, gedacht, for thought. Okay, it has a vowel change. E becomes A, so that feels like a strong verb, but it has the T ending of a weak verb. What is this thing? Did it just break all the rules? Not quite. This little guy belongs to a small, special third club called mixed verbs. They're basically hybrids. They take the weak T ending, but they also pull off the strong verbs trick of changing their vowel. Denken becomes gedacht, and another common one is bringen, to bring, which becomes gebracht. So let's lay out all the evidence from our love story. We've seen weak verbs like gewalt. We saw a whole bunch of those powerful strong verbs like gesehen and gefunden. And we even found a couple of those special hybrid mixed verbs. And just like that, what looked like total, utter chaos at the beginning is actually a really fascinating and elegant system. It's not about memorizing random endings. It's about an ancient history of weak verbs, strong verbs, and even a few mixed ones in between, each with its own way of telling a story. So the secret behind German's past tense isn't just a list of exceptions to memorize. It's a story. A story about strength, weakness, and change, all thought up by a guy who collected fairy tales. And it kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What hidden logic and forgotten stories are hiding inside the grammar you use every single day?